So far in my blanket square tutorial series, I have shown you how to do the base square that sort of stands alone. I've shown you how to do the connecting squares that connect the base squares together. And today I'm going to show you how to do the body squares. These are all of the ones after the connecting squares. So no matter how tall you make your blanket, the rest of your squares from the third row and on are going to be your main or body squares. So today we're going to start with this little group of 5 that I had already showed you. Now, you guys have seen the creation of several of these, and as time went on, I indicated that I would be building on it. So at this point, I have made 3 base squares, 2 connecting squares, and I will be able to make 1 body square. As you've probably noticed by the shape of this blanket so far, it is going to be a triangle or a pyramid. However, later I will show you how we're going to square it off and make it more blanket shaped. In the meantime, however, let's get started. Alright, so this section, just like all the others, will start with the black connecting thread, and then we're going to move on to a bright self-striping thread. Just like in the other squares, you're going to start by picking up stitches down the right hand side. And again, don't forget to get that tiny stitch that almost doesn't look like a stitch at the top. Again, the reason that it's like that is because that particular stitch was not twisted correctly when we ended our block. So just as a reminder, for those of you that have missed the other tutorials, you just put your needle in under the 2 sides of the V, you wrap your yarn, however you choose to do that in your knitting style, and you pull it back through. This is called picking up stitches, and usually when a pattern says to pick up stitches, it does mean that you pull the yarn through. I at first thought that it just meant that you stuck your needle in and then went to the next one. That is not the case. You should pick up your yarn. So I'm going to keep going down the side of this block. I should end up with 23 stitches picked up before I get to my black border. Again, if you're doing a different number of stitches in your squares, it will be different for you. So I'm going to finish this and meet you back here in a moment. Okay, so I have finished doing 22 stitches. I'm not going to count them, just trust me. And at the bottom here, I have 1 more stitch to pick up in this sort of green, brown, and blue yarn. So I'm going to pick that one up. Okay, and now I have 1 black stitch. That is from the black border before, and I'm going to pick that one up as well. I now have 24 stitches down the side of this square, including my black border here. Now, the only thing that is different about these main body squares is how you pick up this center stitch. If you remember, here we picked it up by sort of creating one between the 2 squares. Well, here what you do is you stick, let's see, I'm trying to get it to focus. There we go. You stick your needle underneath the top V, very top V, of the center of the square between. I'll show you that again. So this middle square in between is this sort of red, amber red, and you can see the line up the center that was created by our decreases. You're going to stick your needle under the very top V, okay? The one above this is actually the knot, so just the top actual stitch. And I'm just going to pick up a stitch straight into that V. Okay, and what that will do is it will make your center stitch exactly centered on the center of the block below. Moving on, you're going to pick up 1 stitch from the bottom of the black on the left side. Now, remember at the beginning of all of your rows you slip from the previous row, so you're actually going to be picking up 2 stitches in black before you move on, because your second row, the starting stitch, will also be black. Then you just finish picking up your stitches up the left side of your square. Okay, and by the time you get to the end, you should have 22 in the gray and 2 in the black. I will meet you there in a moment. Alright, I have reached the last 2 stitches of my gray square going up the side, so I'm going to make those 2 stitches. Oop, stuck on this one. There we go, and I already counted. That gets me to 49 stitches total. So 23 in the brown and green, 1 in the black, 1 in the red, 1 in the black stripe, 1 in the black slip stitch, and then 22 in the gray. Remember, this is going to leave this sort of center stitch popping out, and that's okay because you're going to pick it up when you stitch on top of that. So just like we've done in all of our other squares, I'm just going to turn my work around, slip my first stitch with the yarn in the front, move the yarn to the back, and knit all the way across. This knot is going to drive me nuts. That is how the yarn came, but it is obnoxious. All right, so then you're going to knit all the way across. As usual, in your black connecting row, you are not going to purl in the center, you're just going to knit. And also, as usual, when you get to the end, you're going to knit through the back loop. The rest of the creation of this square is exactly the same as all of the previous squares. I will record it again in case you're just watching this video, but if you've seen the previous videos before, feel free to tune out at this point. There's not going to be much else that's new. All right, thank you, and I will meet you in a moment. Okay, I've now reached the end of this row. I'm going to knit right up to the last stitch and knit through the back loop. At this point, I'm going to turn my work, and I will slip the first stitch as if to purl with the yarn in front. Then put my yarn in the back, and this is where I'm going to add my new yarn. Just like before, when you add this yarn, be sure to leave a yarn tail that is big enough since it will sort of miraculously shrink as you knit. So I'm going to knit until there are 23 stitches total that have passed through my needle, so 22 in the new yarn and 1 in the black, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so I have 1 black stitch and 22 knit stitches. If you have done your picking up of your stitches right, the next 3 stitches should be from the black border, from the center of the block below, and then from the black border again. This is where you're going to do your triple center decrease. So knit, slip 2 as if to knit together, knit the next stitch, and then slip those pass those 2 slip stitches back over your stitch. The rest of the row proceeds as normal, where you are knitting all of the stitches until the end when you knit through the back loop. Okay, I'm almost at the very end of this body square. I'm just going to finish up the last few rows on camera just to establish the pattern. So I slip as if to purl with the yarn in front, put the yarn in back, knit 1. Then I'm at my center stitches, so I'm going to do my triple center decrease, as I've been doing the whole time. Then I just have 1 to knit, and I will knit through the back loop. Just like when you do your other squares, these last few rows get a little bit strange and they fall off of the pattern. So I'll slip 1 with the yarn in front, knit 1, purl 1 for my center stitch, knit 1, knit through the back loop. So now I slip 1 as if to purl with the yarn in front, and I'm going to go straight into my triple center decrease because I don't have extra stitches there to knit on the sides. So I go straight into that triple center decrease, and when I get to the other side, again, there's nothing to knit, so I'll just knit through the back loop. Turn my work, and here's where it gets a little weird, and again, this is why the loops at the very top are a little bit funky when you're picking up stitches. So slip through the back loop, but then instead of moving your yarn to the front to knit, which causes the stitch to lie flat along the edge here, you're going to keep your yarn in the back so you can purl, and then knit through the back loop. Keeping your yarn in the back to purl is what causes this top stitch to be a little twisted and to be difficult to find when you're trying to pick it up. Now, you have only 3 stitches left, so you're not going to slip anything, not going to knit anything, just going to go straight to your triple center decrease. Okay, and the triple center decrease is what causes that extra stitch at the top on either side to sort of disappear, because it literally did, into the decrease. You're going to cut your yarn, thread it through to end your knitting as you normally would on any project. And there you go. This is the basic structure for all of the triangles in the blanket. So if you have 5 base triangles or 12 base triangles, it doesn't matter, because the idea is going to be the same. You're going to create base triangles followed by base squares followed by connecting squares, and then you're going to end up with your main or body squares that are going to make the rest of your work. So as you can see in the stuff that I've previously done, I have 5 base squares, 4 connecting squares, and then I still have 6 more body squares. Eventually, this will get attached here, and I'll be able to make another connecting square and then fill it in with body squares. So the way that this works essentially functions as a triangle construction until you decide where you want the edge to be. I haven't finalized whether I want this to be the edge of it or not, or if I want this to be the edge of it. So I haven't started squaring off my blanket, but when I do start squaring off my blanket, I will certainly do a tutorial about that. In the meantime, next up, I'm going to talk about how I weave in all of these ends to turn that into this. See you then. Bye.